Marcus Freeman speaks about Notre Dame's newest quarterback signee with the unmistakable conviction of a coach who has seen the full spectrum of talent and pressure at the highest levels of the sport, yet knows immediately when someone possesses something different, something rare, something that doesn't just show up on film, but pulses through every rep, every throw, every moment a young quarterback steps onto a field with the weight of expectation pressing quietly against his shoulders. When he talks about Noah Grubbs, his voice carries that subtle lift, that hint of excitement he tries not to show too often but can't quite hide, because in Grubbs he sees not just a prospect, not just another name on a recruiting board, but the possibility of a future shaped by a player capable of becoming the heartbeat of Notre Dame football. Sitting in his office, surrounded by the legacy of a program that demands greatness, Freeman recalls standing on a summer field months earlier, watching the ball jump out of Grubbs' hand with a velocity and confidence rarely seen from a high school senior. Even then, before the season exploded into the kind of senior year campaign that turned heads nationwide, Freeman knew he was witnessing something that didn't require explanation or analytics. It was something you feel before you understand. Noah is as talented of a high school player as we've evaluated, he said, a simple sentence loaded with weight when it comes from a man who has evaluated hundreds, maybe thousands of young quarterbacks over his career. For Freeman to stop, watch, and genuinely believe says everything. The coach described watching Grubbs spin the ball during a warm summer session, the way it cut through the air with a tightness and authority that separated him from the rest. Nothing about it felt forced, nothing felt rehearsed. It was natural, fluid, instinctive, the kind of throwing motion that seems less like mechanics and more like muscle memory built over a lifetime of trying to perfect something that can't truly be perfected. It was the moment Freeman realized he wasn't just watching another recruit, he was watching someone capable of carrying the identity of a program. For a coach who spent his first seasons at Notre Dame navigating one of the most difficult balancing acts in college football, choosing between developing high school recruits or diving into the transfer portal in search of immediate stability, the significance of finding a true high school quarterback who could grow into the face of the program was immeasurable. Freeman never hid the reality that his early years demanded difficult decisions. Notre Dame needed leadership at quarterback, consistency, and maturity, and sometimes the portal was the only path that gave his team a chance to compete at the highest level. In my first 2 years, he said, I had to make the decision to go into the transfer portal. They weren't choices he made lightly, and they weren't choices he wanted to make forever, but they were choices he believed were necessary, not for convenience, not out of impatience, but out of responsibility to the young men in the locker room who deserved the best chance to win. He recalls the moment things began to shift, the moment stability became more than a temporary solution. He explained when Riley was our quarterback, he knew the future quarterback was in-house. For the first time since Freeman took the reins of the program, he looked at his roster and saw not just one option, but multiple young players capable of stepping into the spotlight someday. He looked across the quarterback room and saw 3 different possible futures for Notre Dame, each one holding its own promise, each one giving him something he had long been waiting for, the chance to build rather than patch, to develop rather than scramble, to invest rather than pivot. But even with that newfound stability, even with multiple possibilities taking shape in front of him, something about Noah Grubbs stood out. Grubbs didn't just fit into the future, he illuminated it, sharpened it, gave it a focal point. He represented the kind of high school quarterback recruit who could grow with the program, absorb its expectations, and eventually embody its identity. It wasn't just about arm strength, though the arm alone would have drawn national interest. It wasn't just about size or mobility or the ability to throw off platform, though he had those too. It was the intangible substance in the way he carried himself, calm, assured, competitive without arrogance, poised without pretense. He played like a young man who understood both the weight and the privilege of being a quarterback, and he embraced both. Freeman describes watching Grubbs' senior season with the kind of coaches rarely allow themselves to feel publicly. Every week he saw another piece of evidence confirming what he already believed, that Grubbs wasn't just a talented kid playing well, he was ascending, evolving in real time, sharpening his decision-making, commanding an offense with maturity well beyond his age. High school football can be chaotic, unpredictable, sloppy at times, but Grubbs operated like someone who had already spent years studying the nuances of the game. Reads that should have confused him didn't. Coverages that should have baited him failed. Pressure that should have rattled him seemed to sharpen his awareness instead. He wasn't simply surviving those moments, he was mastering them. By the midpoint of the season, Freeman no longer saw a recruit on film, he saw a quarterback. And not just any quarterback, a Notre Dame quarterback. The kind built for the magnitude, the scrutiny, the tradition, the demand for excellence that comes with stepping into South Bend. It's not a position for the timid, and it's not a place for players still deciding whether they want to lead. Notre Dame's quarterback must embrace expectation, not hide from it, must confront pressure, not collapse beneath it, and must understand that at Notre Dame the position is more than a job, it's a calling. Freeman believes Grubbs is built for that calling. He said, "I have a strong belief," he said, choosing his words carefully but firmly, that Noah will get here and do good things in his first year. Coaches rarely speak that boldly about freshmen. The position is notoriously unforgiving, and the transition from high school to college is brutal even for elite prospects. But Freeman isn't projecting recklessly. He's evaluating, studying, and concluding. The belief is rooted in everything he has watched: Noah's maturity, his command, his understanding of the offense, his willingness to be coached, his ability to respond to adversity, and most importantly, the humility that allows great quarterbacks to become even greater. Grubbs doesn't approach the game with entitlement. He approaches it with hunger. He doesn't assume leadership, he earns it. That mindset, more than any throw, is what convinces Freeman that the young man arriving on campus will not shy away from competition. He will lean into it. The vision Freeman has is clear: for Notre Dame's future to be shaped not by temporary solutions or short-term patches, but by young men who grow inside the program, who understand its standards from their earliest days, who bleed blue and gold long before they ever start a game. That vision requires trust, not just in the process, but in the players themselves. And in Grubbs, he sees someone worthy of that trust. He sees a quarterback whose presence elevates teammates, a quarterback whose preparation becomes contagious, a quarterback whose confidence is steady, not loud, a quarterback who could walk into the locker room as a freshman and already have the gravitas to lead without forcing it. As Freeman imagines Grubbs arriving in South Bend, walking across the practice field for the first time under the shadow of Notre Dame Stadium, he doesn't see a kid overwhelmed by the moment. He sees a competitor locking in. He sees a player stepping onto grass he has dreamed about but is fully prepared to earn. He sees someone ready, not because he has to be, but because he chooses to be. Over time, coaches learn to recognize difference, not in numbers, not in recruiting rankings, not in hype, but in the deeper layers of a player's makeup. How he responds to criticism, how he carries himself when no one is watching, how he approaches the smallest details of his craft. Grubbs checks those boxes with a steadiness that feels uncommon for someone his age. Freeman's excitement is not the excitement of a coach hoping for a miracle. It is the excitement of a coach who believes he has found the future he has long been waiting to develop, a young quarterback capable of leading, inspiring, and elevating Notre Dame football into its next era. And as the coach talks about him, as he revisits the moments that led to this belief, one thing becomes clear: this isn't just another signing. This is the beginning of something. Something intentional, something powerful, something that will soon unfold on the fields of South Bend. Because when Marcus Freeman looks at Noah Grubbs, he doesn't just see talent, he sees trajectory, he sees leadership, he sees the future of Notre Dame football, arriving with a steady hand, a sharp mind, and a heart ready to carry the weight of a program built on legacy, expectation, and the relentless pursuit of greatness.